you have to, in the data menu, you need to have the data analysis activated. So if it isn't, you have to go to File, Preferences, Data Analysis, and then you click on Regression right here. Click OK. And then the input Y range, we have one Y variable, and that's cost. So highlight cost. And then click OK. And then the Y range will be these three right here. And then make sure you click labels because we highlighted also the headlines. And then click on output range right here. And then click here and then select the place where you want the table to be, anywhere not on the table. And then you click OK and I'll give you that table. Mm-hmm. Okay, so last class we came up with the regression, and the objective here is you have a company and they make three different goods, A, B, and C, and this is how many they make on a monthly basis. And when they make those many units, this is the total cost that month for the company. So we're trying to come up with an equation that will let you guys forecast if we make, let's say, 100 units of each one, what will be the total cost. So if you're the manager for the company, you can allocate the budget. And if you recall last class, we came up with this equation, and it is equal to what? Is the coefficient for the intercept plus each one of the coefficients times the number of units that you're planning to produce. So I don't know what numbers you have. I think we did 500, I believe, last class. So the total cost will be 40,000. If we round it up, $619, $20. Okay. And then this coefficients right here. So what do they mean? Let me remove some of the decimals. We don't need that many. Maybe one decimal is plenty. Last class I asked, so this intercept is the y-intercept. What does it mean? What does it represent? So and you told me that would be the fixed cost. If we make all of the units 0, we still have to incur that cost in the company, and it's equal to the intercept, so that would be the fixed cost. So what is the variable cost per unit? Let me do this. Review, new comment. Actually, I don't want to. This one will be fixed cost. So that's what the intercept represents. And then each one of those, it's the variable cost per unit. Okay. And if you can look at the model, let's do the following. Let's say I make 1 unit of A. So the cost goes up by how much? By 2.1, because that's how much the company is going to have to spend on top of the fixed cost to make unit A. If you make that equal to 0, and then we make this one equal to 1, this number goes up exactly by 4.2. So the variable cost per unit of B will be $4.20. Okay? So these coefficients represent variable cost per unit of A, B, and C. So for those of you guys who are double majors and you're doing economics, in microeconomics you do a lot of variable cost and fixed cost. So you can run regression and you can come up with all of this and then quickly estimate what is the variable cost, fixed cost. And if you're the manager, it's something you want to know as well. Let me go again to put here 500 units so we can continue with the example. Now, there's a few numbers here in the table that I want to go over. First one is this one, R squared. That number, it is 0.64 You find that number a lot of times expressed as a percent. So let me change that number to 65%. So tell me, what does that number mean, the 65%? 65% means what? R squared. You almost have it, I think. Yeah, so, something like that. That would be a technical definition, but if you want to tell, your company, the owners, the managers, what this means, it would be 65% of the variation in cost is explained by these variables. Which ones? A, B, and C. Okay. So the total cost is given to us in column, this one right here, and then that total cost is the fixed cost plus all of the variable cost. But these are not completely linear relationships. You have other variations. But this model, the way it is, it explains 65% of your total cost. So there are other variables that are causing this total cost, but they're not explained by A, B, and C. And that will mean that you have to go find other variables that will help you to explain maybe 80, 90%. The thing is, if you recall, when you took your econometrics, statistics, in business, it's difficult to come up with R squares of 99% because you have a lot of volatility, even human behavior, who is operating the equipment that day can be a factor. And how do you model that? But the model as it is explains 65% of the variation. So I may ask you that in the exam, in the homework, I don't know. So make sure you have that comment. And then these numbers right here, p-values. Because just because you run the model, it doesn't mean that it's a good model. Maybe you can improve the model. Maybe it's not the best model. 65%, it's a very reasonable number. Does anybody recall what the p-values tell you? Why do you need the p-values when you run regression analysis? The p-value test the hypothesis. The coefficient is equal to 0. Which ones? Which coefficients? All of this right here. The 35,000, the 2.1, 4.2, and the 4.8. What happens if those coefficients are equal to 0, or any of them is equal to 0? Then it should not be included in the model. Because if it's equal to 0, then it has no effect in the total cost. Does that make sense? Now, so which ones are good coefficients? Well, see this number right here? That's basically equal to 0. And then this one will be 23%. This one 2.5%. This one 1.7%. So this will tell you the following. If you run this, let's say 100 times, 23% of the time the coefficient will be equal to 0. For the others, this one, it's never going to be equal to 0, even if you run this 1,000 times. Because look at the probability. It's basically 0. This one, 2.5% of the times will be 0. This one, 1.7. So in business applications, we're looking at maybe p-values of 0.10, 0.15 as the cutoff. So anything above 0.10, 0.15, then we want to remove that coefficient, that variable from the model, okay? Because it doesn't explain what you're trying to accomplish. Why 0.10, 0.15? In business, this may affect your total cost, but it's not going to kill anyone. If you design roller coasters, you don't want those numbers to be 23% or 50%. You want the tolerance to be very, 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 very small because of there is people's life involved. So let's run the model again, but we're going to exclude 8mate and see what happens. Okay? So let's go to data analysis. Let's run the regression again. And because you run it once, well, I did it once right now, it's going to save all of that. But the X range is going to change. So I'm going to click here and highlight only B and C, and then all the way to the bottom to 19. Press enter. I want this to be right below this one, G25. And we have a new table, but this one only has coefficients intercept, B mate, and C mate. Okay. So is this one a better model than the first one? Look at the p-values. They're all very, very, very small. Okay. And that means that the chance that one of them is equal to 0 and it has no effect in the cost, it's very, very, very small. Not even 0.1% or 1%. Okay. But if I look at the R square, it is what, 61%? 61%. What was the R square before? 65. So which one explains more of the variation? Model number 1. The problem with model number 1 is that you have a p-value that is 20.23. The second one, all the p-values are very, very small. So which one is the better one? Sometimes it's not clear-cut. But let's do the following calculation. Let's find out what the total cost will be. So it will be equal to, I'm using the new model, so the intercept plus B mate coefficient times the 500, this one for B, plus the C mate coefficient times the 500 for the C column. And the total cost will be 40,844. So if we exclude the 8mate coefficient, we get that total cost estimation. And look at the variable cost per unit. It is 532 and 541. Why did it go up? Because you're excluding A, so you're charging more variable cost to B and C. I'm going to zoom out. So which model will you guys use if you're running this plant? Model number 1, which with A, B, and C, or model number 2 with only B and C? Very similar. In one, the R squared is higher, but one of the p-values is too high. In the second one, the R squared is lower, but the p-values are even better than in the other one. Total cost, very close. So which one will you use? Model 1 or model number 2? And there's no right and wrong answer. They're almost the same. If you want to play it safe, which one will you use? You're the manager for this company and you have a budget. Which one will you use? Look at the total cost. In this one, how much do you have to budget for expenses? 40,620, and this one 40,844. So if you want to play it safe, which one will you use? But what if you need a little more money because you under budget your expenses? So if you go with this one, it's a little more that you have to budget, and if your expenses are a little higher, you will have the monies. Now, they're almost the same, but sometimes you can go just to play it safe with the higher number, as long as it's not a huge difference. You can budget $20,000 more just to be on the safe side. You have to justify that to your boss. But this can give an idea. Questions about linear regression? So in the exam, you can expect to have a table like this. You will have to run the model, check the R-square, check the p-values, rerun the model. If one of the p-values is too high, above 0.10, 0.15, I'll be specific in the exam. And then you have to know what the intercept means. Like in this case, it's the fixed cost, and the other are the variable cost per units. Okay. If not, let's move on to the next topic. I uploaded a few files a couple files, or 3, to Blackboard. They're right here. HLOOKUP, VLOOKUP. I'll use those in the next class. And then I have this pivot tables. We'll be working with this one. Your first model will be using pivot tables. But before I do that, I want to show you this one, this file. It's a tic-tac-toe, the game where you can play. So if you open that file, because last class we talked about the if-then command, so I want to show you to what extent you can use that. Make sure that you enable here. The file has a macro, which is it's a programming file, so enable content. Yeah, it's in Blackboard. And you know how to play tic-tac-toe, right? You put X's and O's. Okay. So play with your neighbor. And I'll play one here, but you guys can play one on your own. Make sure you use X and O. You have to use X and O. And if you want to restart, just press clear and it'll erase the whole thing, and then you can begin again the game. So play a couple times. And I'll show you how to make those buttons that take action later. You see how it's telling you who's the winner right here? Okay. So how did I do that? So that it knows you have 3 X's in a row, if-then commands. But it's a long one. So I'm going to double click on this one, and that's the equation. That's the if-then. Okay. So we did nested if-then commands last class. There are other commands in Excel. There's or and they work with your if-then. So I'm doing the following. And means the following, that you have to meet all of these conditions. So in this case, it would be D6 equals X, F9 equals X, H12 equals X. And all 3 have to be met because it's AND. So this one, and the last one. But because you can have several combinations, I'm using the OR command. So it can be this combination, or this combination, or this combination, which is the diagonals and the horizontals and the vertical columns. And then the if is doing, if none of these are met, then I have a double quote right here. And double quote in Excel is what? Just a blank. Okay? So that's why, because it's all X's right here, none of them meet the condition. gonna leave blank. And then you press clear, erases the whole thing, and then you can restart it. So I'm not gonna be asking you to do something like this in the exam. Just keep in mind that sometimes you wanna do something and you can't figure it out how, so you can use if and then and and or commands. I use those when I'm doing your final grades, well, not in this class, but my other classes, when I drop one exam, I use the two highest grades. So what I do is, if this grade is higher than this one or higher than this one, then use this one. So I have 140 students, so I don't want to do it one by one. So I just if, then, ors, and copy the formula, and it does all the calculations. So it's just something you can use to model your, if you're doing something in the future, you know. All right. Plus now you have a tic-tac-toe you can use to play games. So. Alrighty, let me save this one. So let's open this file right here, pivot tables. And we're going to do two kinds of pivot tables. This one is based on this file, and then you're going to be doing financial ratios, and that's going to be your model number one, and you have to use pivot tables. So this is a database, and it has the following. It's a company, and they sell, goods, whatever they happen to be, and it's a global company, so they have salespeople, USA, Canada, the UK, Mexico, etc. And then this is the name of the salesperson. This is when they place the order. And then this is the color. This is the size, material, the order ID, and each one of the amounts, how much was the total. So let's say we want to do the following. In the whole database, what is the total order amount for each one of the countries? How much for the US? How much for Mexico? How would you do that? You may have used pivot tables before, but if you haven't, what would be a good way to find out how much Mexico, how much in Canada? Excel? I'm going to do the following. Control, Shift, number 8, if you recall, that's going to select the whole table. It's a huge table, so if you do it by dragging the mouse, it'll take you a long time. And then Excel has this command right here, sort, so you can use custom sort. Okay. And right here, sort by what? So let's click here and do this by country. And then what if you also want to do by salesperson? So we can add one level here and do it by salesperson. Make sure you have this box checked. My data has headers. And then you click OK. And then it's alphabetically ordered. So you have Canada. And then you have Emma. Because Emma is from Canada in this example. If you scroll down, you can see it's huge. Then Liam from Canada, etc. It'll take you a long time to do it this way. What if you want to add up all of the Canadian sales? How would you do that? With what you know about Excel, how would you tell me, well, let's do only Emma, total orders for Emma. Sum, and then you can highlight this for Emma. See, I went too far. I think that's it. So that will be the total orders for Emma. But then that's in the whole time period. So what if I only want 1 month, 1 year? You can see that it's going to take you a long time to start sorting this by date, by person, by country, by color. So instead of doing that, we're going to do the following. Click on country, so we can be inside the table, and then go to insert. And the first option here is called pivot table. So you click on that one. and Excel is going to try to guess what table you want to apply the pivot table on. That's the only table, so we can just click OK right here, and you'll see that new window, and that's the pivot table. Okay. So we can, and then right here you can see all the different fields in the table: country, the name, date, size, etc. So let's do this by date first. So click on order date, okay, and it's going to populate all of the different dates you have in your data table. Okay. And those are by day, so we can group this by quarters, by years. So click in any of the dates right here. You have to do that. Okay. And then go to this option right here, group field. And then right here, how do you want to group this? We can do it by month, by quarter, and by year. So I'm going to select those three. And then click OK. And then you can see it's already rearranged. So this is 2004, quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then each one of the months in the quarter. And this may have happened to you, and you're trying to, when I say click on a year, on a date, see if I click up here in years, it's still doing. Like if you select the whole thing, right here, group field is not activated, so you can't click on it. So you have to click on the year, and then you can go to group field. Okay. So what do you guys want to know? How many? We said how many cells Emma in Canada. So let's do the following. Since we already grouped the dates over here, I'm going to uncheck that, the dates, and let's add salesperson to the rows. And this is difficult to teach. I mean, this is something you have to play with. You start dropping values in the different fields. Now look here, I have all of the salesperson right here. And then what do you want to know? Order amount. I'm going to click this one and drop it in there. Didn't want to, so rows. So now we have Andres, but it's going to be a better way to do this. Let me see. Value. In values. Drop it in values. And let me zoom in so you can see what I have. So I have salespeople here in rows, and then some values, the order amount, and look how quickly I was able to come up with what are total sales for each one of those individuals.
How do you find the sum of order?
You click on order amount and you drop it right there, and it'll do the sum. If you want to do times and other options, you can click there. So I was looking for Emma right there. Emma is 931,000, and let's say Leon, it's 784,000. Now, what if you want to do the same thing by year? Because this is total. Okay, so let's add the date, and I'm going to add only years. So I'm going to click on years, drop it in rows. So now look, I have year, I have each one of the salesperson, and I have the order amount for that 1 year only. So this is great for if you have people working for you, in their own sales. You can quickly sort all of these numbers, and you can see how they are performing. If you want to do this on a quarterly basis, then you can click on quarter, drop it between years and salespeople. So now you have more detail. You have 2005, quarter 1, Joe, and you have the order amount that given year. Okay. All right. Questions so far? Okay. Let's not erase that one, because if you start adding and dropping things, that table is going to get erased. So let's go back to source data, to the table, and then do, again, insert, pivot table, and then click OK again. And it's going to make a new pivot table so you can save the last one. Okay? There's no need to group the dates anymore because you did it once already. So let me give you a challenge. Tell me how many units of by color. So do it by in each country. How many units of each one of the colors were sold? I think we have red, blue, and yellow. I forget the colors. But make a table that for the entire period, you can tell me by country how many units were sold in each country by color. And you'll get something like that. In each country, how many units of each colors were sold? So this is black, blue, red, and yellow. And then this is Canada, Mexico, the UK, and the USA. Okay? And I did it this way. I put country in the row, and then I put color in the column, and then you have to add color to some values. So I'm going to click on color and drop it in some values. And what is grand total? That would be how many total units, regardless of the color. Where? Like right here? You got it? Okay. Yeah, please help each other. Because it's, okay, so go to the source data, make a new table, but tell me, you have two different kinds of material, plastic and metal. So for each individual, not country, but by individual, how many plastic and how many metal units each one of them sold in the entire period? Insert, pivot table, okay? So in that one, I want to see by individual and how many plastic and how many metal, each one of them. So all you gotta do is drop values in the options over there. Got it? So we'll do, I'm gonna drop salespersons right here, and then material in the column. So I get metal and I get plastic, and then you drop material again in some values. And there you have it. How many plastic, how many metal, how many each one. And then modify this table to do the following. In every year in your sample period, for each individual, how many metal and how many plastic. So you have to modify this table. I want to see by year, this is the whole period. So on an annual basis, by individual, how many plastic, how many metal. How do you modify this table? Yeah. Just be careful that if you make this, not mistake, but if you drop years after the person, then you'll get this right here. So if you want to have the year first, then you put years on top. Now the other one might be valuable too, because you can see Andres, you can see trends in his sales. Because for every year, this is Andres, and you can see how many metals and how many plastics, and you can see trends. Okay? Or you can do it by every year, you have each one of them. Let me see, ask you another one. Let's do one. Let's make it complicated, I guess. By country, by year, country, person, and then the order amount of each color. Not the number of units, but the order amount of each color. Because we did one table in which you told me how many units of each color each one of them sold, but instead of having the number of units, I want the total order amount by color. So by year, by country, by person, by color, and then and the total order amount. Yeah, year, country, person, and then for each color, what is the total order amount? And you'll get something like that. You can highlight this ones and all of them if you want. Just two. So,
So it doesn't recognize if on the other table you already have it as dollars.
no, no, that's one thing. Anytime you do a new table, it's going to give you a plain format, and then you have to. So what does the table tell me? Let's say here in 2003, in Mexico, Miguel, he sold black units for this amount, 1,256, okay? Which is different from the one we did before. Because if I remove order amount and I put color here, then it will tell me how many of each one of them. I will have to reformat that to be not dollar sign. But if you want to know the order amount, then I remove color and I put order amount. So you can be very detailed. If you try to do the same thing using sorting, sorted by country, by person, by year, it'll take you forever to do something like that. My students actually have gone to job interviews and they tell them, okay, this is a computer, do a pivot table, and do this, do that, tell me how much of this, how many, who, what year, and they do something like this, and it's at least for one of them that was part of the job interview. So make sure you know how to do stuff like this. In the exam, I'll give you the exact table, this one right here, and I will be asking you different questions. How many of this or that, what year, this person. So this file is available to you. So go home and practice and make your own questions. Just, look at the table and start thinking, how many of this color by this person in this country in this year in this quarter, and then you start making combinations. And by doing that, you can learn to do this quick. Okay. So in the exam, I will be asking you things like this. Okay. All right. Let's do a new pivot table. So I can show you other commands with inside pivot tables. So insert pivot table, and I want to do this by year, and then salesperson and order amount. And this 2003, I'm going to go to the bottom and down. So it's 2014, the last year we have available. And format this. Now, you can do it this visually, but if you use an Excel command, how can you find quickly who had the highest sales in 2014? You can do this by looking at the numbers, but it will be whom? Olivia, I believe. It's 100 and, right? But if you use Excel commands, how will you find Olivia? Max. Or you can do what? You can sort it. Okay. So you could do this. and then go, I guess, no, the sort command doesn't work. I tried and it didn't work. They're not active. Never occurred to me to do it that way, but it didn't work. But we can do this, equals max, and then highlight the range. So the number will be 158,000. So then you're looking for that number. And you can do that, manually, visually. It's not that many people. But if you want to use Excel to highlight this number, then we can use conditional formatting. So I can do the following. I'm going to highlight that range right there, and then go to conditional formatting right here. And then the first option, there's one that says equal to. So equal to what? I'm going to click on this cell right here. See, and it highlighted automatically that number. So you can find, oh, it's Olivia. She has the highest sales. And if you don't like it red, because it's highest sales, you can click here and you can use other color palettes. Click OK. So that's how you can find Olivia very quickly and highlight it and put a color. Okay? So I have this one, which is equal to the max of those numbers. And then you highlight the range and then go to conditional formatting, highlight cell rules, the equal to, and then click equal to that one. And then you can use a different color if you want. So you found it. So that's one thing you can do. Something else you can do is you can highlight these numbers, and then you go to conditional formatting, and the second option is top 10 items or top 10% right here. Let's see. So it only highlighted that one. I guess that's the top 10%. I think you can do top 20 sometimes. Or let me use this one. Above average. So if I do above average, all of those individuals, they had sales above the average. So you don't have to do the calculation on your own. And you can do below average. And I'm just going to show you this. You can also do more rules. And you have all of those options. You can make your own rules and options. So, it's just a matter of playing with all of those. And that's mostly cosmetic, or it's also going to help you to manipulate data. Ready? So I'm going to show you something else. So for this, you have to click on your pivot table anywhere, so we can activate the pivot table. And then up here, it says Pivot Table Tools. Go to Analyze. And then there's an option here called Fields, Items, and Sets. Click on that one. And then first option is Calculated Field. Click on that one. And this one will let you input equations, so you can do calculations with the numbers in the pivot table. And let's say you want to give a bonus to anybody who had sales in excess of $100,000. Okay. Now again, you don't have that many people here, so it's easy, but the name, I'm going to call this one bonus. Okay. And then I can zoom in, so you have to see this in your computers. And the next one, formula, it's like the Excel. You always begin with an equal sign. And we want to give a bonus to anybody with sales in excess of 100,000. So I need to use an if-then command. So we can say if, And then anytime you do an if command, you have to open a parenthesis. And then I'm going to double click on order amount. Okay. So if order amount it's greater than what number? 100,000, comma, how do you calculate the bonus? Let's say a 10% bonus. So it would be order amount times 0.10, comma, the bonus will be equal to how much? 0 in this case. And then you close the parenthesis. Click OK. Say yes. You go to the bottom. So in 2014, this is Andres right here. Sales for him are in excess of 100,000. So he gets a bonus, 10%. So Excel calculated for you the bonus right here. Same thing for Buchanan. Look at Dodsworth. Sales are less than 100,000. So how much is the bonus? 0, because we did the if then command. Okay. So you can calculate bonuses for all of them, very quickly instead of doing manual. Questions so far on pivot tables? Okay, the next thing we're going to do with pivot tables is going to download financial data and then group it with pivot tables and then do financial ratio calculations. So you can do more finance. This is finance, but this is more management. So save this file as, I don't know, pivot tables. Save as. I'm going to close it. And then you need to open a browser for this. And you need to go to the UTRGV library website. I forget what the address is, so I'll just okay, so it's utrgv.edu/library. Okay. And then go to find right here, go to databases, and then the only option is then databases by subject. And then click on finance. You can do this from home, but you have to log in with your UTRGV credentials. If you do it inside the university, then you can go straight. And then the one we're going to be using is this one right here. It's called Mergent Online. Click on that one. And this is where you will have to log in if you're doing this from home. Right here in company search, if you know the stock symbol, I'm going to do Netflix, since we did Netflix for the other analysis. NFLX, and then it will give you the option for Netflix. Click on that one. And if you haven't used this database and you want to know more about companies, it's a great source right here. They give you just a description of the business model, the stock price, recently, the key executives, age, how much money they make. Here they have highlights about the company, history of the company, debt, properties they own, etc., etc. Ownership, who owns the company. It's a public company. So you can see who owns the company. It's mostly owned by institutions. That would be like pension funds, mutual funds. Very little is owned by actual individuals. Uh, but the one I want to do is this one, company financials. So here they give us the financial statements. And if you click here where it says annuals, you can download this annually or you can do it quarterly. I want to do this on a quarterly basis. Let's click here quarterly. And then which financial statement do you want? You can click on the balance sheet, income statement, retained earnings, cash flows. Let's click all sections so we can have all of them. And then you can go back up to 15 years, but we'll do only 5 years. So we'll have 20 quarters. And then you can click here if you want the numbers in thousands, millions. We'll leave it as it is, which is in thousands. And then click refresh. And if you see here, so this will be 9/30/2016. That's the end of the third quarter. It's in dollars, thousands, the scale, and here are cash and cash equivalents. And if you scroll down, you have all of the numbers for every line. Then you have the income statement, and if you keep scrolling down, you can find all the other financial statements. Now, you see here that I have first, second, and third quarter. So what happened to the fourth quarter? How come it's not right here? Why do you think? Well, how often do companies have to file documents with the government and report these numbers? Like large public companies, it's on a quarterly basis. Okay, but after the third quarter, it's the fourth, but that's the annual, the whole year. So companies only report the annual, and the annual includes all of the years. So that's why you don't find it here. But Mergent Online actually calculates for you the fourth quarter by taking the annual minus all the other quarters. And you can do that by going to standardize right here. So this, right now, this option right here is as reported. So that's what the companies report to the government. If we click on standardize, now you can see here first, second, third, and fourth quarter. But again, companies don't publish fourth quarter numbers. Mergent Online is doing the calculation for you. Okay? So now we have all of those. And then let's click on download here, and you can see the Excel symbol, icon. So click there, and open the file here. And then click here, enable. And I'm going to zoom out so you can see all the numbers we have here. So all of that is your financial statements for this company, 5 years, quarterly. So let's say I tell you, tell me about this company. Is the company getting better? What is the financial health of the company? Well, that's too many numbers for you to see something, so you have to do some calculations. And we do that with financial ratio. And if you recall, when you took your principles classes, there are main categories of financial ratios. Can you give me one of them? One category? Which one? Profitability is one. Another one? Liquidity? Another one? Debt? Let's put it over here. Liquidity. And then we have efficiency ratios. And then we have debt ratios, profitability, and the last one, they're called market ratios. And each one of them has financial ratios within each category. Okay? So we're going to be calculating all of those 5 categories. Okay? But if you try to do that by hand for every quarter, it takes a long time. So let's do something. I always like to keep this one, this raw data. Don't touch that one. In case you make a mistake, you don't have to go back and download it. So we're going to make a copy of all of that. And so I'm going to right click here and standardize. And then there's an option that says move our copy. Click on that one. And click on create a copy right here. And then you can click OK. So you can see that Excel has created a new one here, but it's 2. And if you double click, we can rename it. I'm going to call this one just the raw data. And we can use pivot tables and put equations in the pivot tables so we can do all of the calculations. But before we do that, we have to clean this data. If you try to do a pivot table on this, it's not going to work. And one reason for that is see all of these empty columns? You cannot have empty columns. It has to be continuous. And there's nothing you can do. When you click Emergent Online Download, that's what you get, and you don't control that. So you can right-click on column C and then click Delete. So you have to delete each one of those. You can also do the following. I'm going to click on Control in the keyboard, and then I click on D, click on D, and then Control, and then click on F, and then H, J, L. So you can select several columns, and then click on one of the columns, and right-click, and then delete. And then you can go and delete all the others. So do that first, clean, delete all of the empty columns. So that's the first thing you need to do. Now, if I scroll down, you will see that you have empty rows as well. Okay? So we have to get rid of all the empty rows. Now, before you start deleting empty rows, please look at the screen. The headline, the labels for that column right there is the same right here. So you only need one set of labels. You don't have to have it every. So what I'm going to do right here is select those and then delete all of them. So that I go from total liabilities to total revenue. And then you keep scrolling down and you do the same thing for all the others. Who's having trouble? In the exam, while you guys finish cleaning all of this, and when you finish, it's going to look something like that. No empty columns, and I got rid of all the headlines, and I just have a set of headlines at the very top, and no empty rows. For the exam, there's no time for you guys to go to Emergent Online, download the data, clean it all up like this. So I'll just give you the data already clean. But, is everyone at this point, more or less? No? Yep. All right. Now, look at the dates. They're in a row, right? Right here. Well, it's a row with all the columns. The other pivot tables we just worked on, you had the date right here in the column, not in the row. So if you try to do a pivot table on this, it's not going to work. So we have to turn the table 90 degrees. And that's called transpose in Excel. So I'm going to do the following. I'm going to select the table, so shift and to the right, shift and to the bottom. So you need to select the whole table, all of the statements, all of the columns, all of the rows. Like that. Sometimes if you don't want to use the keyboard, you can also do this. You can zoom out like that. So you can just, so it's kind of difficult to see, but you can select the table as well. That's another option. Okay. So go from, it will be A7 all the way to U130. Okay? A7 to U130. Okay? And then do Control C so you can copy the table, and you will see this green line here kind of moving. That means that you copy all of that, and then we're going to paste that into a new worksheet. So click on the plus sign right here, okay. And then you are in column in cell A1. And look at my computer, and then you can do it in yours. We're going to do the following: paste. But before we paste, we go to paste the special, and there's an option here that says transpose. So when you do that, you click. So what happened? See, the whole thing rotated 90 degrees. So now you have the date in one column instead of having the date in a long row. And this is the way you have to have your data for pivot tables. You need to have the dates in a column. It doesn't work when it's in a row. And part of the objective of doing all of this is to teach you guys how to manipulate data in Excel. You can delete columns, add columns, rotate, copy and paste, and do different things. Okay? Is everyone here at this point? Yeah. Okay. Now, so I've done this before. I know that I don't need B, C, D, E, and F. And so if you can highlight B to F and delete those columns, we don't need those labels. So I'm just going to right click and delete those. Now, ask yourself, does that more or less look like the pivot table we did before in the other example? We have date in the first column, and then we have a bunch of categories. So it kind of looks like a pivot table. Okay, so we're ready to do the pivot tables. And when you do pivot tables, everything has to have a label. Okay? So you can then drag your categories. So let's go insert, click on pivot tables. Excel is going to highlight the whole thing. So far it's working. And then we click OK. And you have that empty pivot table. And what is the first thing you want to do? Group the date by quarter. So we can have quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so how do we do that? Here, instead of being called order date, it's called report date. So if we can drop report date in rows, they're right there. Okay. And then, do you see right here what it says group field? It's not active. So how do you activate that? So you click like in any date, but look, still not active. And you can click on all of them, just one of them, and it will not be active. Okay? So let me tell you why. Let me go back to, where do I have all the data? Right here. First time I did this, I had to look it up because it wouldn't work. Okay. To you, that looks like a date. To Excel, to the computer, that's not a date. It's text. And when it's text, it cannot do operations on text. So we have to convert that into a date that Excel can read. And one of the reasons why it's a text, it has that 0. If it's an Excel date, it will be only 6/30/2016. So let's do the following. Right click here in column B to insert. Okay? And let's call this column just date. So it can be different from the other one. So there's an Excel command, and it's called equals date. And you have two of them, date and date value. I think it's date, the one we know. It's date value. So type it or double click on date value, open the parentheses, and it's asking for what? Date text, which is this one right here, A2. Okay. And then close the parentheses. Press enter, and it's going to give you a number. In this case, 42,735. For the computer, that number, because the computer has a sequence in the internal clock, that number, it's 12/31/2016. Okay? So because it doesn't look like a date, we can go to right here, General, and tell Excel to make it look like a date. I'm going to use short date, and then you can double click here, so you can copy the equation. And if you see those two, this is 0, 6. This one is only 6. To your eye, to your brain, they're the same thing. To Excel, they're completely different things. This could be John. Okay? So you have to make it a date. Now, let's select the table, excluding the first column. So I'm going to do Shift and down to go all the way to the bottom. And then I'm still holding Shift and to the right. So I select all of the columns, all of the rows. Now we can insert the pivot table. Insert, pivot table. Okay. Shift and down, and then you're still holding Shift, and then you do and to the right. Well, when you insert the pivot table, it's going to make a new one. Yep. Now, let's drop or check on date. Like that. Now, if I click on date, look at the option group field. Now it's active because Excel understands these numbers as a date. And so I'm going to click group field, and I don't want this to be grouped by month, only quarterly. So I'm going to remove month and click on quarter and click on year, and then OK. And I'm going to stop right here. Next class we'll do all the ratio calculations to give you guys a chance to kind of catch up and get to this point. But you can begin to see that I want to do quarterly financial ratio analysis. Now I have all the data grouped by year, and I have it grouped by quarter. So next class we can calculate the different ratios. Okay.